Like, seriously, I don't understand how anybody cares about this. People suddenly are mad because, oh yeah, everyone gives a about the dwarves and Snow White. All these 40-year-old men, you really need to get into the Snow White fandom. Give me a break.
That one is actually still supremely funny, though. The fact that that Geeks and Gamers dude was like posting his own nightmares of his own design, where he's like, I walked out of the Snow White movie. I couldn't take it. Well, I don't know, but dude, why did you go to the Snow White movie? Go also subscribe to Dead Domain's channel. You know, Dead Domain, they had on Elon Musk's daughter, Vivian, well before Hasanabi did.
In Magic the Gathering, there is a card called Gravecrawler. I won't explain all the mechanics of it, but if you look at just the art and the little numbers on it, it probably doesn't look like much, even if you're not overly familiar with the game. It's so small that a new player might just completely write it off upon first seeing it. It costs only 1 mana, but dies super easily, being just a tiny, flimsy little creature. Yet, this decrepit, shambling corpse is a staple in many zombie decks because its text allows it to be incredibly useful outside of combat. It's a body that can be sacrificed for other effects, like drawing cards, gaining life, or triggering other card effects, making it something called a combo piece, where playing it gives a player a lot of options for its utility. You probably see where I'm going with this in a video with Mark Kern in the thumbnail. Around the
Oh, I don't. But I never played Magic the Gathering. It's one of those things where I didn't get to nerd out because I was too busy playing video games like a Chad.
Spring of 2024, Mark Kern, better known by his aliases Grums or the Wet Milk Bottle Bandit, declared a holy war of sorts against the woke mind virus in the gaming industry. This was his way of glomming onto Gamergate 2.
I want to preface by anyone who doesn't know the full story. One of the reasons I think in my heart that Grums became as popular as he did just out of nowhere, virtually just kind of this weird kind of avatar to all of a sudden becoming one of the leaders of like the anti-woke fucking, you know, every single video game is ruined by women or a black character or gay character kind of a person who everyone was idolizing, is because they had finally found someone who agreed with them to the extent like they were willing to go after everything that was basically non-cis, straight, white, all that kind of stuff, but who also worked in the industry pretty in-depthly on a very, very big selling title. So this was an industry insider who combined with being like, because there are other industry insiders who are also pretty right-leaning and have said some really shitty stuff and have just gone down these weird pipelines or rabbit holes that they've used and championed a little bit. But at the end of the day, they don't go quite as hard as everyone on the kind of like, you know, the culture warrior anti-woke right does, where like they want to hear you echo the same weird shit they say all the time. And that's why a lot of the trolls jump in other people's chats and they're like, you can't play this Assassin's Creed. Don't you know about the woke samurai? It's not a real samurai. It's a black man. Ah! And then like, you know, obviously a lot of people are just kind of like, what the fuck, my dude? I just wanted to play Assassin's Creed. Looks pretty fun. I'm enjoying the game. What are you doing here? Go away. And then like that's not enough anymore. It's not enough to just like troll, pop in a chat and be like, haha, the troll is here, I will troll all of you, and then they get kicked out and they're like, ah, back to 4chan. Now it's like they got to sit there and make sure that every person is just as miserable as they are. They spend all day talking about a woke mind virus, but they have this deep, profound sadness that they want everyone else to feel and be just as miserable and just be in weird little corners of the internet, just all angry and like, you know, women are ruining the industry and gay people are ruining the industry and black characters are ruining the industry. And it's like, cool, can we play a game maybe? I mean, that sounds fun. I mean, maybe it would be just like such a gift to just have someone like walk in there and just drop an old school Nintendo 64 with 4 controllers, GoldenEye and Mario Kart, maybe even one of the Mario parties, not one of the ones that hurt your hand, right? And just sit there and be like, why don't y'all play some games together? You know, offline too, and that way you won't have to be distracted by all the strangeness of the internet and what it seems to be doing to your brain pieces. Because right now you could have some fun with friends and actually do the thing that you say that you love and it's been taken away from you. Video games. Just right there, you know?
A poorly conceived and loosely organized group of people who really got mad about the woke mind virus in their games. Previously, he had also locked into the original Gamergate in 2015. The controversies, if you can call them that, which led to this movement, were primarily kicked off by the usual crowd of vaguely right-leaning internet complainers drawing attention to Sweet Baby Inc., a consulting group that was linked to several well-known games. Some of those games had sold well, some did not. Some of them Sweet Baby had a bigger hand in, some they had less. In none of them did Sweet Baby Inc. do anything other than help edit and focus the scripts and design, because they're a consultancy firm, not a developer. As I discussed at length in the Synthetic Man video, Sweet Baby Inc. also didn't receive any kind of funding from massive companies like BlackRock because it doesn't get funded, it gets paid through contract work. Now, none of these very simple facts stop the narrative that took over from being various shades of bullshit about Sweet Baby Inc. being the reason that certain games failed, or more damningly for people who live in basements, that they had been made woke in the first place. And you might ask yourself, well, what was so bad about these games? Well, usually to these people it was the aforementioned wokeness. To people who aren't terminally online, these people think literally...
Can you imagine people just like generally like diversity? Yeah. I'm just like, I'm so far gone from whatever weird, I don't think any of them in their brains just naturally feel as strange as they do now perpetually. Like they've trained themselves to be like this. You'd have to. Like you have to sit there and no matter what you're enjoying in life, it could be anything. It could be a sunset. It could be a nice ice cream. It could be your new favorite video game that's been released. You have to be looking for, is any of this woke? Which is just so strange. And I feel a cruel, like, you know, illness I would never wish upon anyone. Like that just sounds like all consuming of the biggest time wasting variety. Like nothing has both been so all consuming and such a massive waste of time, you know, in just living in a strange, deranged, racist fantasy that like sexist, you know, dimension that every single one of them has to perpetually exist in, just sitting there all day and just being like, oh, this ketchup, I think it's not woke, but I never can tell, you know. You go through the 4th ingredient list and there it is. It says it has trans fats. What does that mean? Is it woke now? And just like, Jesus fucking did. Eat the fries. What the fuck is going on here? Do you live like this? Do you, like all the time?
Any kind of representation of other genders, skin colors, ethnic or religious backgrounds is wokeness. The commanders at the helm of this uncoordinated nerd brigade must have felt like they were going to deliver a competent Gamergate sequel, taking just a slightly different approach, focusing on different characters, and coming 10 years after anyone should really care. I'm willing to bet they were hoping for a kind of 300 Rise of an Empire situation, or at best, a Sin City a Dame to Kill For, but it was more of a Dogs and Cats, Revenge of Kitty galore in the end. Smash JT, Asmongold, Endymion, and a bunch of other whinging charisma voids joined the chorus alongside Grums to support the calls to get wokeness out of games, and with these intellectual powerhouses at the helm, well, it hasn't gone well. The original Gamergate wasn't exactly known for its academic rigor, fairness, level-headed leadership, or even much of a structure to begin with. While there were people earnestly trying to push back against what they saw as unfair treatment and a need for, say it with me now, ethics in game journalism, the majority of people ended up waving the Gamergate.
Wait, is that the big tweet that has all of the internet right hating Alyssa Mercante? You can't be racist against white people. Thanks for tuning in. Was this the origin? Because this person gets more hate by all of these people on a regular basis where I barely understand why. I thought it was because she was an OnlyFans model and occasionally like promotes her OnlyFans work. And then I was just like, I guess that's just enough. And these days, it's enough for every single one of them. But it's just weird how they keep bringing her up over and over and over and over again. And was she a gaming journalist? Did she work deeply inside of a video game industry? Did she work for one of the companies? What is it? But then, yeah, so that's it. It's because she's both a sex worker and made this statement, and that was enough for Asmongold to be like, oh my god, I have seen the devil, and she is before me.
The majority of people who ended up waving the Gamergate banner online were simply in it to harass women or anyone they arbitrarily defined as SJWs. There's debates to be had about how serious people were about their talking points or how many were just using the broad movement as an
I was surprised at how insanely smart she comes off in interviews. None of it makes much sense. That she had a really, she had an interview with Mike from PA that was really good. Oh, awesome. I should watch or read more of her content because I've always found it unusual how I see so many of these weird far-right accounts who like just talk about how video games are ruined by the wokeness, by women and all this kind of shit, always bring her up. It's like there's a series of posts and replies any one of them can do to any thread that after a certain amount of time, they're going to bring up one or two different people, and she happens to be one of those people that it's like all roads lead to Alyssa every single time.
Excuse to harass others. Now, it didn't help that there were legitimate opportunists in the pro-SJW side like Brianna Wu, who used the harassment to get a wider spotlight and then used that to push for more money to do things like fighting harassment. I will talk extensively about Brianna Wu and her lies in an upcoming deep dive I've been working on, so if you also have her blocked on Blue Sky, please feel free to subscribe and stick around for that video. But for now, it's enough to say that there were some legitimate complaints, but whatever legitimacy the movement had was drowned out by the constant cacophony.
Who is this? This is Dead Domain.
Of harassment, death threats, doxing, bomb threats, and more from people who wanted SJWs out of their video games. So in the end, it became a self-defeating war as the industry and even Gamergate's victims just kind of moved on, leaving these forum warriors to become more embittered towards the woke media landscape. The interesting difference, however, is that terms like woke weren't in the broad lexicon back in 2014 or 2015. It wasn't until well into Trump's first term that it became the term du jour for people who can't look women in the eye to describe video entertainments what have a black person in them. And that's probably because even before Trump's first term, Gamergate was wrangled from just a broad ethical movement, to use their terminology, instead being shifted into a explicitly political one. It's well known by now how political agents like Steve Bannon and Milo Yiannopoulos used Gamergate and funneled the aimless rage of primarily young and primarily white men to a political end, which is part of why harassment likely became so commonplace, particularly towards women, people of color, and the SJW menace. They literally used their hack-ass rag Breitbart to focus on Gamergate and turn it from a tiny, middling controversy into a conservative culture war issue. Keep in mind, there was nothing really about SJWs ruining games that had anything to do with the very first targets of Gamergate. Anita Sarkeesian was making a video series on feminist readings of games, and Zoe Quinn had a controversy about a review of their game. You might say, well, yeah, but Anita was being an SJW talking about games. To which I say, who gives a shit? Anyone can make a video on anything they want. She wasn't the fucking SJW Moses climbing to the top of Mount Wokeness and bringing down the 10 commandments of woke game design.
As someone who went through like all the details of Gamergate to do research for it, I remember being pretty shocked of watching all of those original videos by her and just being struck at how like inoffensive they were. Just to think that like there was such a monstrous meltdown to these video game analysis that were bringing up a lot of stuff that you would see in academia for any other topic, like, you know, the way movies are analyzed, the way music is analyzed, the way poetry is analyzed, like just the exact same method, just using academic you know, style courses on video games tropes, you know, their history, the effects that these tropes can reinforce in society, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, if you're not into things like feminist theory, it might not have been for you. But then it wasn't, right? Like you could choose not to watch it or not to consume it. It was the fact that it was even being made in the first place. Like, how dare you? How dare you come here and take our beloved? And the thing is, it's my beloved genre too. Like, I happen to be a massive video game nerd. I'm a huge gamer, and I wasted so much of my high school days not going out, not partying, not going on dates and all that kind of stuff. Just literally sitting at home on a Friday night playing RPGs, playing Super Nintendo, playing Sega Genesis, and fucking just burning fucking hours into that shit. And like, I get cherishing the games that you played or the adventures you had, right? But that doesn't mean that, like, how do you expect it to be ever treated like a respectable form of media if it can't be analyzed like every other respectable form of media? Like, and then get so mad about that. Like, people would pick apart every one of her videos, and she obviously made a couple mistakes, as anyone I think who's like analyzing stuff from an outsider perspective. Like, if I analyze Magic the Gathering, if I made a documentary on it, I would do my best, but there'd probably be one person who at some point would be like, actually, Lance, at the 13th-minute mark, you said that this +2 potion actually has a reversal effect on this conjuring spell. That's not true. It actually doesn't have a reversal spell. What it has is called a inverse reverse spell, which is slightly different but very critical, and you're way off base here. And like, yeah, okay, fine, I'm sorry, you're right, I technically got that one little detail wrong, but like, I think my overarching theme of you know, Nazis bad, and that's why people playing games for fun is good, it still it comes through in the video, you know. And that's what she essentially did in some of them. Like, she messed up saying that in Hitman, you do not have to assassinate a sex worker in this one mission. She said, like, in this like level of the game, the character of Hitman can literally kill a character who's portraying a prostitute, and because of that, like all this kind of stuff. And then you're like, yes, but you didn't have to. You can get through the mission just as well without actually having to assassinate the sex worker. So you're wrong in that the game requires you to. That's not a fair read. And so call that out. But like that was enough for like all of the Gamergaters to just be like, holy shit, she fucked up. Look at that. She fucked up so fucking bad. That's not true. You don't have to do that. We got her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. None of the sexism stuff is real. None of the racism stuff is real. She's been destroyed.
And ordering every developer to abide by them, she was just a critic people didn't like. Yet, as Gamergate progressed, the narrative, at least for many of its most loyal adherents, became that it was about the SJWs. It was about women being in men's spaces. It was about fighting feminism. These ideas spread through the regular forums, entwining with incels, alt-right, and other adjacent ideologies. There have always been assholes on the internet, but in a very real way. The way Gamergate was pushed through the filter like a cheese grater of right-wing ideology led to the intensely polarized internet landscape we have today, to the point where noted bad video game player Elon Musk has tipped his fedora in their direction. And part of that includes people who are most active in the shitty direct-to-video sequel, Gamergate 2. Now, right-wing culture war slop factories like the Quartering got their start around the first Gamergate and took advantage of nearly any culture war that they could to pump out poorly produced, bile-filled garbage. These videos often have no cogent analysis of the subject matter and usually just repeat the talking points others have already taken, which coincidentally aligned with whatever way the wind seems to be blowing for the online right. Black Stormtrooper? Woke. Desexualized teenager? Woke. Paying someone a living wage? Woke. There's no end to the bullshit spewed by these modern Alex Jones-style hucksters, as they also tack on their ads for shitty drop-shipped coffee. So it's not even kind of worth debunking any of their original arguments, because by the time you debunk one video, they'll have posted 5 more to move on to the next fabricated controversy, hoping one of them takes off and they can bilk it for all it's worth for the next couple weeks. They're gish-galloping monetized content and encouraged by YouTube's hit and maybe miss algorithm that doesn't care about the quality of content being posted so much as it meets an arbitrary timestamp and can be used for ad revenue. Like, seriously, I don't understand how anybody cares about this. People suddenly are mad because, oh yeah, everyone gives a shit about the dwarves and Snow White. All these 40-year-old men, you really need to get into the Snow White fandom. Give me a fucking break. Suddenly that poorly made cartoon you watched as a kid is being remarketed to a new generation to sell more.
That one is actually still supremely funny, though. The fact that Geeks and Gamers dude was like posting his own nightmares of his own design, where he's like, I walked out of the Snow White movie. I couldn't take it. It's like, well, I don't know, but dude, why did you go to the Snow White movie? I feel, based on your content and like your months, almost years of ranting about this, you weren't the target demo. You were not going to have fun. Like, it just, I could have predicted that for you. But no. Make an in the car driving home video like, you'll never believe this. It was a bad movie. I could not stay inside the bad movie. It was surprisingly bad.
More toys, but it's in a different art style, and that's why a grown man needs to be angry at minorities. And you can see why so many people resort to lazy content with unoriginal talking points with some of the loudest voices against wokeness in games currently ruining the industry. Just go look up how channels like Andy Pants Gaming and Endymion TV have grown, literally capitalizing on impotent internet rage slop. Like, seriously, a bunch of Andy Pants videos are just scrolling around a spreadsheet or even just glorified image slideshows without narration. And for the lack of effort, look at the fucking views he gets, because being controversial and inflammatory is guaranteed to get attention. But Gamergate 2 was never going to work.
Here's a business opportunity for anyone who's looking for a part-time job. You could make one of these channels. It doesn't seem to be too difficult. The barrier for entry seems very low. All right, you just gotta repeat a lot of the same talking points and talk a lot about, how basically you want to have a relationship with God and raise a family and focus on that. But then what you should do after a couple, and then you make your big break, is start to just like totally change your audience's brains in real time. Yeah, as soon as they're in there and they're in there deep, you're like, all right, you all love me now, me, Fortnite Joe, that you've all come to love everything about me. Well, I've got some new ideas. I'm starting to see the world in a different light.
At least not achieve any tangible goals, because at the end of the day, the majority of people who actually buy and play games just kind of don't give a shit.
We're not doing this shit. It's a fucking video game. If you are upset that there's a black guy in a video game, fuck off. I don't want you here. I don't care. Stop. I'm not doing this fucking argument. Every goddamn game these days. Oh, it's woke. Oh, there's a black guy. Oh, there's a trans person. Shut the fuck up. Either play the game or go the fuck outside, bro. It's not that hard. God damn. I've been on this earth 37 fucking years. When I was a kid, guess what? If a game came out and I didn't want to get involved with it, I didn't fucking play with it. I didn't go on the internet and cry like an entitled little child. Wah, 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 wah. The game doesn't have stuff that I want. So shut the fuck up and leave, bro. Are you that much of a fucking loser that you're seeking out streams of a game you don't like just to be like, wah, I don't like this. There's a black guy. Shut the fuck up. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
And I think people like Mark Kern, Smash JT, Jeremy from the Quartering, and all these other dipshits know this. It was never a serious or realistic goal to defeat the woke mind virus in the industry because these people never actually proposed real solutions. What they sold was outrage, and in return, they got attention. Seriously, consider for a moment, what was their solution? The closest they got to a victory was Elon saying he was going to make a non-woke AI game company. Grumz was one of the only people in the movement who was actually any kind of game developer with a history, and he wouldn't know how to deliver a product if it already had the fucking address on it. They tried to centralize their criticism on blogs and news sites, but one glance at those sites shows a total lack of actual journalistic oversight and quality control, because at the end of the day, these people don't have the standards or talent of the developer or journalists they rail so hard against, and I think they know that, and it's probably why they're so mad. First, I want to talk about how the Gamergate 2 culture war just so happened to coincide with the 2024 election season. Being in such close proximity to right-wing online spaces, it shouldn't be surprising that many of these dorks openly endorse Trump, but I still think for a lot of people in the audience, Gamergate 2 was an outlet for their conservative activism. This is entirely speculation, I want to be clear, but I think the same contingent that was harnessed by Milo and Bannon was all but abandoned as Trump pursued friendless billionaires instead this time around. Bannon wasn't focused on forum warriors for MAGA, he was pitching big picture fascist retribution. Yet, I think for the people who made up the Gamergate crowd, including younger incels who weren't around the first time and old heads desperate for a shred of the internet clout and sense of purpose it gave them, clamored for more. They wanted an outlet where they felt they could meaningfully represent the political causes they believed in, and for a group of people who seem to think the internet is real life, video game characters warrant death threats, and spend their days debating the artistic merits of big anime tits, the best way to be politically meaningfully active is apparently posting, which really is where Mark Kern comes in. Last year, I talked a bit about Mark and his history and why he's such a perpetually embarrassing figure, so go watch that for the full rundown. But a recently fantastic documentary expose was also released on the channel MYOB that shone even more light on the crushing depths of his personal depravity. I highly recommend watching that video and whatever follow-up comes along, and I'll link the video.
You also got to listen to Western Kabuki's episode where they go through the live stream where Mark tried to have a gotcha, because he found out that the stuff was coming out, right? So he did that thing where totally innocent. I'm not embarrassed of anything that I did in the past, and none of it is in any way sussy-wussy, but I am deleting all of it. So just deleted any trace of every single corner of the internet where he could be associated with Debbie Chan. Debbie Chan, of course, was his persona on the internet where he pretended to be a lesbian who was really into forced milking fetish porn, BDSM forced milking fetish porn, and was actually commissioning people to draw pictures for him of his own fantasies that he was writing erotica for, as well as he was filming using suspiciously the exact same cameras that he had previously used at one of his other workplaces. But I mean, they could be completely separate cameras, $50,000 cameras that average people would just buy to, again, film their low-grade amateur fetish porn. But he deleted all of it, and then he gets wasted, goes on this weird live stream late at night, and it's called the Yellow Fash stream or something like that shit. The whole thing was just the Twilight Zone of, unwashed underwear, fucking Cheeto stains, fucking every stereotype you'd imagine, people just going off at minorities, at women, Snow White, bruh. And then finally Grumz gets on there wasted and just starts spilling all the details about his years and years of being a porn manufacturer and consumer, clearly. And they were kind of in a weird position. A lot of them were oh, whoa, that's crazy. So yeah, I gotta ask, bro, what kind of porn was it? We're not talking children, are we? He's no. Did you know all of it was softcore? It was softcore. It was very tasteful softcore porn. Honestly, I made so much money. I was so rich. I was printing cash all the time, making my softcore porn, and everything was great. Yeah. So why are they saying that your mom is involved? She was registered for the company. Then the dude just went off on his mom, on sexualizing his mom, talking about how hot she was. She was like a Playboy bunny, and also bringing up she's totally fine with this. She knows all about this. She knows about every element of it. So take that. I used to actually show people pictures of my mom just so they'd see how hot she was, and all this other shit. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this has put all of the anti-woke, fucking all these weirdos in the weirdest spot, because they're all live on stream. There's 4,000 people watching the stream, and they're all just sitting there kind of Mm-hmm. You know. Oh, you don't say. Yeah, your mom's. Oh yeah. Well, no, that's cool, man. That's cool. I didn't know. We didn't need. I don't know if we needed to know about all that part. Cool. Yeah. So you didn't do anything bad, did you? Though, Grumps, did you?
Down below, but long story short, it's proven that he ran a series of bizarre and violent fetish sites and likely swindled donators out of money for his poorly written erotica. I recently read some of the highlights on stream, so enjoy. She stepped up to Donna so that her bullet-like breasts pressed into Donna's chest. Donna flipped her a sarcastic smirk and gave her a little shove back with her own orbs.
I haven't actually read the Grum's fucking erotica. See, that's good. The problem is that they found themselves a savior, a Christ, and the problem was Christ was so goddamn horny. He is just such a fucking horny, weird old man that, like, at the end of the day, it was in some way it was going to come back to bite you. I just didn't know it was going to be this hilarious, to be completely honest with you. I didn't know that you were going to just find that he was a prolific writer of forced milking fetish porn, where he pretended to be a lesbian. Debbie Chan. The lesbian porn writer.
Oh. Carmen and Donna pushed and rubbed their tits against each other in a little game of breast-to-breast sumo. The squishing of their spandex.
Breast-to-breast sumo. Oh my god. That's so... Who is this man? Are you not entertained? Quartering geeks and gamers. The rest, Smash JT. Is this your god?
As their breasts collided, could be heard above the whisper of waves.
Above.
By an occasional soft gasping from one girl or the other as their hardened nipples. I'm fucking crying.
Oh my god. Found their mark. Pun definitely intended, bro. As their hardened nipples found their mark. Amazing. There's little clues, you know? I mean, he couldn't let the world know that Debbie Chan was in fact actually the real life Mark Kern, but there were little crumbs in there for you to find yourself. Next, Donna could feel herself get excited as they dueled with their breasts. On guard! Let us smash them into each other, sumo style.
Lean forward to...
I just, like, the thing is, I know that, like, at this time in history, he's married, and he's also filming hardcore porn, so he is aware, all right, this is not a virgin trying to fantasize about what the act of sex would be like, but he's definitely not a woman or lesbian, and the thing about that being that he has to then envision in his mind, like, if I enter the psyche, the mind of Debbie Chan, how would a woman write forced milking BDSM wrestling porn? What would her tone be? Because I can't write it as Mark Kern, you know, Mark Kern, super successful game maker, like, you know, beloved by the internet abroad. Then no one's gonna want the Grum's version of this. They want to hear Debbie's voice.
Whisper something in Carmen's ear. Whatever she said was the wrong thing. Couldn't think of a thing for her to say. Couldn't think of just a thing, just the one thing. For Carmen's face turned red, and letting out a shriek, she managed to topple Donna into the nearby By the way, it bears repeating. These are the kind of stories that made up the content that Mark Kern wanted to charge people for. This is, of course, not surprising given that his only real game
not only charged people for, but he was paying artists, and I mean, at least he was paying artists, commissioning them to visualize it, because he didn't only want to write the erotica. That was kind of like him writing a script. He then wanted to see the animated version of it, and then also, you know, try and profit off that. I don't know if he was actually making the amount of money that he was boasting about making. Like, oh, I got so rich, I made so much money. I think he was just screaming that over and over and over again to try and downplay the clearly weird tone that the Fash stream suddenly had, where everyone was just kind of like, yeah, and they were trying to, like, in their brains figure out how to fight back. So they were trying to do this inverse hypocrisy angle, which was kind of tough for them because they're not used to trying to be, like, you know, performatively woke or anything like that. So they're like, well, don't those guys always talk about how much they, like, respect prostitutes or something? So, like, if they, like, respect them, then how can they get mad at you and stuff? And he's like, no, that's totally it. It's like, you know, the woke left are always saying that they, like, you know, sex work is work and all this kind of stuff. And then suddenly they come across a guy who's like, yeah, I was paying sex workers, I was filming them, I was paying artists, I was paying writers. We're like, well, I know one of that isn't entirely true. I don't know if you had to pay writers, unless that means you were paying yourself, right? If you're referring to, like, the royal we, like Debbie Chan isn't you. You can separate Debbie Chan from the Grums and the Mark Kern, and then Debbie Chan was being paid, and then, okay, in that sense, yes, you were paying a writer.
Project Ember seems to be only a money-making scheme. By the way, Mark, 8 is not a B. It would be pronounced emater. Secondly, plenty of other internet sleuths and investigators have done the footwork to find out that Mark has settled into a rhythm of overpromising for the project, then under-delivering to the point that even his own diehard fans who have been in the emater Discord, because they're so hyped for the game, have openly doubted and questioned how much the game has actually been developed. So if Mark is a game dev who's just out here fighting an honest fight against the woke mind virus, why is he being targeted? Why, in his words, is he being doxed and threatened? Neither of which he ever supplies actual evidence for, by the way. But the reason that he's being targeted is because he just won't stop posting and actually work on the fucking game. Mark, remember when I talked about Gravecrawler earlier? How it's useful as a combo piece, but doesn't do much on its own. That's a good way to think about Grums and really the entirety of this Gamergate 2 movement. People like Grums are combo pieces that, on their own, are just tiny little do-nothing creatures. But they keep coming back because they're useful for others. They're useful as little distractions, as triggers for other arguments and targets. Which is why, regardless of success of Gamergate 2, these shambling basement dwellers will keep rising from the depths to keep being cycled through the same shit over and over. It's all they can do. So you have this contingent of chronically online people who are mad at the nebulous woke mind virus, yet don't have any real political movement to get behind. And you have content creators who get more attention, money, and clout for painting targets. That's basically Gamergate 2 in a nutshell, and why it failed to produce any tangible results. Last year, I did a stream where I basically said I wasn't going to talk about this collection of doors.
Well, I should also add, like, the real dangerous result of the first Gamergate and why people should actually take it more seriously than just simply an internet phenomenon about bullying you heard about, maybe, you know, tangentially or something like that, is that there was a section of the political apparatus on the right wing, specifically Steve Bannon and other people who were very close to Trump, who weaponized a lot of the anger that was created, manifested, and demonstrated by Gamergate, took that and then turned that into political power, and then tried to start to absorb things like, you know, the far right movement, the America First movement, the neo-reactionary movement, the Groyper movement. All of these kind of things have now effectively been turned into tools to push towards getting Donald Trump and his own, like, fascistic agenda in power. And some of them, like, I don't think for a second that, you know, this clown here is sitting there every single day waking up and being like, yeah, I as a soldier of Trump and MAGA, I'm now going to talk for 5 hours about how the anime titties in a new video game aren't jiggly enough for me, and that makes me really upset because a black woman worked on a video game at a studio one time, and also something called Sweet Baby Inc. I don't know what that means yet, but I'm mad. I don't think that's correlated. I think he does what he does because he's just a clown man and very horny, like a lot of them are, right? Like a lot of these are just horny, really old men who loved video games when they were like teenagers, and now as horny old men, they're basically, where are the breasts? More breasts, the stellar blade. And so yeah, they're getting angry and horny and weird. But then there's people on the other end who are capable of weaponizing a lot of the outrage that their audiences are peddling and turning that into really terrible shit. Turning that into fucking red pill shit, men's rights shit, white supremacist shit, all the way up to MAGA, vote for Trump, far-right nationalist movements, and doing it in other countries as well. Like a lot of the same kind of outrages you see in videos from the West, you see in other countries in just other languages. There are videos in Spanish that come out of Spain that are doing all the same machismo, culture war shit. They're just simply doing it in Spanish or Catalan. There are videos that come out of France, you know, where people speak in French and have the same fucking talking points when you watch them. It's like, holy shit, all this stuff is just being regurgitated, all being upset that there's too many women in video games, all being upset that there's too many black characters in video games, all being upset that this company was hired to try and make the games woke and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's sad, but this stuff sells to a demographic of mostly young boys who sit there looking for edgy, offensive content of people who are making fun of women, who are making fun of minorities, all that kind of shit, and trying to. And then the danger comes when you have things like, in say, like, you know, if a political movement starts to tap into it, like the Conservatives in Canada, we're good at using the hashtags.
Because the game plan was so incredibly transparent. It's the same one channels like the Quartering used for the last decade to maintain relevance. Find something that can nebulously be called woke, rally against the game, and if it's popular, you act like it's not. If it isn't popular, you say go woke, go broke, rinse and repeat. Throughout last year, we saw it happen with Dragon Age Veilguard, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Flintlock, Dustborn, and a bunch of other middling games I can't remember but probably aren't worth getting that mad over. As a gamer myself, some of these games I liked, some of them I didn't. I didn't like Dustborn, for example. I thought it was laughably preachy. I didn't care for Flintlock, but I thought I had cool jumping mechanics. I quite enjoyed my time with Dragon Age Veilguard, and I haven't played Assassin's Creed Shadows.
I just beat Prince of Persia, the new one. It was woke as fuck and so much fun. That was a fun game, but it's really, really hardcore platforming action. I died maybe like, you know, hundreds of times on a single little like 5-second jump.
It's because I've been too busy. But of all these games, the big one they were focused on was Assassin's Creed Shadows. They crafted intricate narratives about how it was disrespecting Japanese culture and history, and then just didn't really care every other time that had ever happened in a video game. The endless stream of racist memes that took over any spaces these people interacted with, as a bunch of people with anime body pillows of underage characters suddenly became accredited scholars of Japanese antiquity. They didn't have any problem with the myriad characters in anime and video games meant to represent Yasuke before this, because it isn't actually about the principle, it's about virtue signaling. That's all this is, by the way. The people who once so proudly railed against SJWs for being annoying, preachy virtue signalers have become exactly what they fought against, unable to broach any complex subject without inserting their incomprehensible politics in a series of dog whistles only recognizable to other dorks who all watch the same slop and all use the same talking points. It's part of why the incredibly middling game, Stellar Blade, became a bizarre Gooner rallying cry, because to them, it was virtue signaling that big anime titties were important culturally or something. They didn't need to play the game, they didn't need the story of the game.
And my dudes, you can get big anime titties everywhere, everywhere. You'll never believe this. There's this thing called the internet, and you can use it, and you can just look at endless titties. All the titties you want, so many titties. You'll see titties you never even dreamed of, ones you didn't know existed. You think 3 titties is impressive? What about 4 titties? Yeah, that's right. There's an endless amount of titties out there for you to look at. It's just wild. And then you could also just let other people who want to also enjoy other things enjoy them. That could be another thing. Then you don't have to worry.
Be good or interesting. They just wanted representation for the incredible.
I think it's safe to say that like 0% of all those fucking, you know, social justice culture war commentary videos, 0% of them are produced with post-nut clarity. None of them. It's just like it would be impossible for them. You know, they would be just way too calm and zen. All of it has to be, you know, after months and months of abstaining, and then finally the opportunity is here.
Shallow ideals they thought were worthwhile. In this case, being tits. And all the while, let's not forget about Grums, who was posting through it all year. Grums, too, gained a whole new cache of internet clout, particularly on Twitter, where he's directly interacted with Elon Musk several times, even calling Elon's attention to the woke mind virus in gaming, enough that Elon claimed to be starting a game studio with AI. Remember that, Elon? Where's the game studio, Elon? Where's the game studio?
I'll be fair. I think that studio is coming. I just think it's going to suck ass. Not in the good way. I think it's just going to be shitty. It's going to be a whole bunch of really, really shitty ass AI video games that are just like, anti-woke video game, kill Antifa, look how much fun this is. You know, what is it? A puzzle game for slurs. Yeah, lol, kek. And then it's going to be like, okay. Yeah, fun. Are you guys happy now? Will you leave other people who just want to enjoy video games alone? Because that sounds great.
Yeah. Now, the first big game Grums would put his chips on last year was the aforementioned Stellar Blade, a game I talked about more in depth in this video. I don't want to relitigate that whole video, but the long and short is, like most of these other games, it just wasn't worth the effort that went into representing it as some sort of cultural victory over wokeness. Yet, when it also didn't become the cultural phenomenon the hardcores insisted on it being, the rest of the world just moved on, like all of these other controversies. The controversies would skip one to another, focusing primarily on any game with a person of color, queer person, or even just having to fabricate controversies with games that allowed you to make your own character. Every big game, before it even hit shelves, seems to have one of these dorks loudly exclaiming through a YouTube thumbnail that it's gone woke. So if the entire industry is woke, what are you fighting against? Like, I know the reason they keep putting out garbage like this, because money.
Yeah. Like, I haven't even heard of a lot of these people, and then all of a sudden it's like, Jesus Christ, 176,000 views. And every time you click on the video, it's just video game footage, like not even edited to the things they're talking about. Like, that would be too much effort to be able to take clips from the games and actually demonstrate what you're talking about. It's just literally just them sitting there playing a video game, going on a racist rant for like 20 minutes. Just like, it's the same thing as if you just sat beside, if you had like a really shitty friend who won't shut the fuck up and not listen to anyone else, and you're just sitting beside them, they won't share the game either, and they're just sitting there playing the game like, yeah man, that's why girls suck, because they try to manipulate us. I don't know if you've heard this, but like, they take all the money in custody. It's like when you get divorced and shit, they take the kids too. Women are the worst, man, blah blah blah. Like, fuck off. Can I play? Can I try, you know?
But I genuinely don't see any fire in any of them anymore. If I had to speculate, it's probably a mix of the disastrous results and social pushback against the conservatism they spent the last year advocating, but also because they pushed everything they had onto Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it didn't matter. You can sit and say, oh, the game still hasn't broken even, and that's not surprising, but has nothing to do with it going woke and broke, because the only thing it broke was record sales for the series, as shown by sales on the PlayStation Store. Now, if there's a reason Assassin's Creed Shadows might have to do better than this to break even, it's because of how scuffed the industry and its development pipelines are. Here's how you can tell how little these dorks know and care about the game industry, by the way. You never hear them talking about how devs shouldn't have to crunch, how budgets and scope for games have been blown so far out of proportion to meet shareholder bullet point demands. You don't hear them proposing solutions for the workers or advocating that game budgets be shrunk to deliver more of the smaller, more intricate games that we saw during the Xbox 360 days. You know, the games they constantly talk about being better than the woke open world slop we get now. The reason those games were more focused and more intricate was because they had smaller, more focused teams, smaller development scopes and goals. Every Call of Duty wasn't 3 different kinds of live service game with a tacked-on campaign. It was a solid campaign and a solid multiplayer. And all of those games are still replayable to this day, by the way. Now, these are problems that have been growing in the industry over the last decade and a half in particular, as more and more legendary studios are swallowed whole by, for example, the Call of Duty machine, or EA spending the mid-2010s closing down some of the most iconic developers of all time. Think back to some of Square Enix's...
We're not just talking games. We're talking about how there was an attempt to create another Goonergate. I almost said another Goonergate, another Gamergate, which became an Goonergate, but effectively just a lot of these weird right-wing weirdo social justice warrior men. Well, I should say culture warrior men who are just talking about how every game is anti-woke because it didn't feature large enough anime titties, or there was a black person, or a woman worked on the development company, or there was a trans person, or a non-binary person, or you can actually choose between a man or a woman in the game, and there might even be a secret third option, and that's enough to be like, oh my god, this is the woke, the virus is here, infecting us.
Baffling estimates for sales for games like Tomb Raider. But you won't hear any of this context from Gamergate 2 in the conversation about Assassin's Creed Shadows, the latest in a series of massive open-world games packed with content and made by hundreds of people. The context of these massive games needing to be so insanely profitable because they're so insanely expensive to make to be gauged a success for the shareholders. Because context doesn't matter. And to them, how much a game sells is apparently the only surefire metric of how good something is. Because they don't actually care about games outside of it being a product that they can consume. That's really what it comes down to. And for all the vitriol... And
that's why it's both games, movies, and basically cultural items, stories. They tap onto that specifically because, again, they feel as if there are parts of society that are changing and changing for the worse, and it's oppressing them. And they're confusing that as oppression because all of a sudden there might be 5% more characters who are women. Playable characters who are women protagonists in video games. That's enough. That's enough to be like, oh my god, the world is changing and I'm oppressed. I don't get 100% of all the characters being men. I only get 95% of the characters being men. How dare they? Holy shit, now it's 94 because 1% of it happens to be black women who are now playable characters in the video games. 1%? I'm oppressed. I'm completely oppressed by this. It feels like a form of oppression and I'm crushed under the weight of it.
Posting they tried to throw at Assassin's Creed Shadows, the actual buying market didn't really care. People saw a game they thought looked neat and they bought it. It's simple as that. And at the edge of an economic downturn, rising game prices, a hellish job market, and about 1,000 other things most adults are worried about, it's not really fair to chalk up a tentpole release's sales, success, or failures to go woke, go broke. Most normal adults realize this. And here's where I come back to this idea of not covering the Gamergate 2 business until something changed or shifted, because I think with Assassin's Creed Shadows out, something has. It was always kind of this end boss, this faraway goal they could rail against, but it's here and their attacks did nothing. So now they're left with a legion of people who are probably realizing they spent all this time caring for nothing. Or at the very least, they are starting to see how plain the grift is for people like Grums, how easily people like Smash JT move from one fabricated controversy to the next. Some of these folks will think these people aren't actually radical enough, and they'll go deeper down the conspiracy wells of 4chan and Kiwi farms, withdrawing the foot soldiers of this online movement back to the vile breeding vats from whence they spawned. But my sincere hope is that most of them realize how their anger, likely at other circumstances, was weaponized by bad faith actors who only presented a funnel for that rage that benefited those actors and people like them. These people never believed with any conviction about a fight against the woke mind virus, because if they truly believed, they'd have tried starting more studios, advocating for changes in the industry's business practices, or done literally anything other than just regurgitate the same slop over and over and posting to Twitter. They had nothing to lose, but everything to gain by painting these targets, and in the short term, it benefited their channels and what clout they could scavenge from each other. But in the long term, Gamergate 2 has already fizzled out, and its brief existence accomplished nothing more than fighting against shadows.
Political Pappy, thanks for giving a tier 1 sub to Boiled Peanuts. Appreciate that. That was a good video. Everyone check out Domain Dead on Twitter and Slashin Model on Instagram, but also Dead Domain's channel there on the YouTubes.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/theserfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincell, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.